Um, Howdy, everybody. Thank you for taking a little time today and looking forward to talking with you all. So let's just dive in and get started. So to start with, let me just tell you who I am. So my name is Joshua Ginsberg. I'm a co-founder and director for SeekHealing, but professionally, I'm a technologist. So I've designed large-scale applications and systems for Red Hat, for National Geographic, for the Washington Post Company, and more. Currently, I am working as a software architect for Columbia University in New York City. And so at the intersection of the two, SeekHealing and technology, I brought my talents to help SeekHealing innovate on how to use technology in this emerging field of social health. But fundamentally, I'm an engineer. And engineers work with tools. That's really where I want to start this talk. When you work with tools, you have to remember the key to getting any job done is having the right ones. A tool by itself isn't good or bad. It's not helpful or not. If you want it to manifest your intention, it's a question of knowing what tool and knowing how to use it. So, this hammer will drive a nail in cleanly and, in the right hands. It'll bend a nail or pummel your thumb otherwise. And you wouldn't use a hammer for a job when you're trying to drive a screw. There's a different tool for that. I mean, this is obvious. We know this. It's not controversial. But I'm starting kind of basic here because the reality is that no tool is inherently right or wrong can take us to some more controversial places. So, for example, if you've just had surgery or you've broken a bone, a doctor may prescribe you opioids to help you manage the pain. And there are risks involved, but there are also clear benefits to this tool for this intention. Under other circumstances, opiates might have a very different risk and benefit profile, but that's not anything inherent to opioids. It's something that's only a quality of our intentions around using them. But the tools that I want to talk to you about today are capitalism and digital technology. So we're a long way from hammers and screwdrivers now. So undoubtedly hearing those words, especially hearing those words together, is probably an emotional response. I imagine we all have feelings around capitalism and living in a capitalist society. Almost everybody I know either loves capitalism or they simply hate capitalism. And I imagine it's about the same for the benefits and ills of technology. And I especially imagine that we all have feelings around how capitalism and technology intersect. I mean, doesn't everybody have really strong feelings about Facebook, Twitter, Amazon? So before we go any further, I want us to take a deep breath and try to let that emotional wave move through us and fall away, because we're going to look at them like tools. What are the benefits they offer? What are the risks they entail? And how do we use these tools to ensure they manifest our intention for them? So, okay. So let's talk about capitalism first. Capitalism as a tool rewards those who direct the world's human and natural resources towards satisfying the needs and desires of other people. And purely objectively speaking, in the history of the world, no tool has been so effective at generating wealth. And in doing so, no tool has so effectively combated extreme poverty worldwide. So, I mean, if progress continues on its current trajectory, the Brookings Institution, a left-leaning institution, estimates that in 10 years, extreme poverty will affect less than 5% of the population. And standard of living worldwide has also improved broadly across the entire planet as the Iron Curtain fell and as capitalism emerged as the sole dominant economic model. But every tool carries its risks, and capitalism is certainly no different. So capitalism is rife with inequity, and it is by design. Many people have more than they could ever use. Some have wealth measured in numbers that the human mind can't even accurately comprehend, while others are insecure in their most basic living needs. Capitalism is deeply and morally unfair. And capitalism, like all tools, has no morality. It's a tool. It exists to satisfy demand without ever questioning whether that demand ought to be satisfied, without consideration for whatever horrors it can facilitate. And at the same time that it has lifted so many people out of poverty, capitalism has enabled us to lay others to rest at a, frankly, industrial scale. It's a tool with so much potential to uplift or repress, but again, it's just a tool. So let's take another deep breath, let an emotional wave pass. Let's move on to looking at technology. So this other tool, digital technology, it can face the same sort of analysis, and the benefits that it offers are obvious and they're dramatic. With the rise of the World Wide Web in the mid-90s and with the rise of mobile computing in the aughts, we saw an unmistakable shift in growth of productivity and value generation from digital technology and from automation. You can see on the graph, like exactly where, as the internet took off, so did the slope of this curve. And sure, more productivity definitely means more money, but the productivity and automation that technology offers us means we have more of our time to spend on things that matter more to us. And that's not even really just a platitude. Like, I feel that personally. So in my work as a systems administrator, as a software engineer, and as an architect, I've worn a pager, having to be on call just in case anything went wrong. And I remember back in 2004, I was living in Colorado, and on Christmas night, there was an outage. I had to drive 25 miles through heavy snow, sure, uphill both ways, to go and replace a failed server, to restore it from backup. And I had to leave my family, and they celebrated Christmas without me. But with the automation technology of today, there was a company I worked for called Ansible. It's an amazing technology. IT and software professionals like me, we get our weekends back. We get our holidays back. And that's not anything to disregard. Because automation means that Amazon can deliver almost anything you want in just a day or two, where these robots, they roam these gigantic warehouses of the fulfillment centers, and they bring the products to the people who package and ship them. And we can choose to do something else with the time that we'd otherwise spend driving around from store to store looking for what we need. Self-driving cars, we're on the brink of them becoming popular everywhere. And self-driving cars will mean that instead of spending our time focused on piloting through traffic and congestion, we're free to devote our attention to whatever it is that we choose. And of course, there's COVID. 100 years ago, when the Spanish flu ravaged the planet, we had a very real choice between solitude or risking ourselves and our loved one to contagion. As unideal as it may be, even with this festival, we're still able to connect like this. And we're still able to deepen our experience of each other through the use of tools that digital technology offers us. And so these technologies have the potential to create a pervasive spaciousness in our lives that's never been possible in our recorded history. But we can use this tool in ways that don't serve us as well. See, if we combine these two tools, something rather unfortunate can happen. And if we're not careful, the combination can be devastating to social health. So we founded SeekHealing on a hypothesis that in hindsight seems incredibly obvious. Maybe people are taking opiates like never before because people are just in pain like never before. Our director of science, neuroscientist, Dr. Rachel Wurzman, say hi, Rachel. There she is. She's also going to be interviewing Dr. Gabor Mate tonight. But Rachel explains that the experience of social isolation results in devastating neurochemical consequences. When we're feeling disconnected, it hurts. SeekHealing's groundbreaking work in the field of social health studies how social contexts inhibit or enable our willingness and our ability to connect with others. But by almost any measure, our social health is disturbingly unwell. So Cigna's 2018 Loneliness Index study found that 47% of Americans do not have meaningful in-person social interactions on a daily basis. That's over 150 million people. 27% of Americans rarely or never feel as though there are people who understand them. That's 90 million of us. And 20% of Americans rarely or never have people they feel close to. That's 65 million people. That's more than the entire populations of California and Florida combined. So why? I mean, if social isolation hurts, why don't we just stop being isolated? Why are so many people still isolated? Why can't we connect? And Dr. Mate's work describes comprehensively how trauma locks us in prisons of isolation. Trauma drives fear, distrust, shame, stigma, and these diseases of social health prevent us from enjoying meaningful social connections. Because trauma and the absence of a social context conducive to healing from it fuels social isolation. Trauma drives fear and social distrust. It tells a story of what vulnerability to others might cost us. Trauma drives anxiety around social interactions. It tells a story of being broken, defective, judged by others. And in an unhealthy social context, it reinforces through stigma and shame that people simply aren't safe to engage with. So ironically, the more one is starving for connection, the less willing a person may be to experience it. And as we discussed, capitalism, it doesn't judge. It has no moral code. What people are drawn toward, capitalism will satisfy. When we as a society focus on capitalism as only as a growth engine for wealth, it will fulfill that intention, no matter the consequences, fulfilling people's desires. So we've deployed automation and technology in ways that make money, giving people what they want, even if what they want is more of what's making them sick. Even if the socially disconnected want to avoid human contact, that's what we'll give them. So capitalism's use of technology can further accelerate our sense of social isolation by further minimizing the opportunities we have to experience a moment of human connection. It's not that capitalism is evil. We're simply using it without an intention towards social health. It's just a tool to give people what they want. And with technology, it really can. When we go to stores, self-checkout, it saves the store money by requiring fewer employees. But how many of us have used the self-checkout to avoid an awkward social interaction with the cashier? I mean, I'll certainly say I have. Between the two, there's sometimes this like small tinge of anxiety that comes up around the unpredictability of a social encounter, whereas the machine interaction is scripted and consistent. Or, why even go to a grocery store at all? You can order groceries or prepared foods straight from an app. You don't even have to talk to somebody on the phone to order pizza anymore. The delivery app space is expected to grow to over $150 billion a year by 2023. And since the pandemic struck, delivery drivers will simply leave your food at your front door. You need not interact with a human being at any step along the way. And of course, the great bogeyman, social media. Our relationships, our memories, our public discourse, they're increasingly negotiated through the abstraction layer of posts, likes, and retweets. The dream career list that might include president or doctor or professional athlete now includes influencer. So perhaps no mix of technology and capitalism has a deeper impact on social health than this one. So for a society filled with people, tender with trauma, anxious and unsafe forming authentic social connections, too often with this spaciousness offered by the wonders of digital technology, we fill that space with nothing. Now, it's worth remembering that I'm viewing this through the lens of my own experience. And I'm a 41-year-old man. I'm what they call a Zennial. I'm not quite Generation X, and I'm not quite a millennial either. I'm old enough to have memories of living in an analog world, with the curly telephone cords and cassette tapes. But I was young enough to be able to adapt to internet and digital technology while my brain was still plastic and growing. I mean, the web was invented when I was 14 years old. I got my first cell phone, a little Nokia, when I was 21. Sometimes it, really feels like I'm straddling two worlds. But there was another part of that signal loneliness study that I shared that caught my eye and gave me pause. 29%, there's a 29% higher loneliness reported by Generation Z, so people under 22, than the greatest generation, over 72. Generation Z in that study reported the highest levels of loneliness of any age group. I realized that Generation Z, even more than Generation X and millennials, can tell us far more about the impact of technological systems, the impact they're having on our social health. Because I can only begin to imagine how different the experience of Gen Z must be. I mean, the iPhone was released when they were in single digits of age. Some of them learned how to swipe before they learned how to talk. And they carry a generational trauma. They have no memories of a world before 9/11. And apologies to Orwell, to them, we have literally always been at war with Afghanistan. Their earliest memories are colored by the war on terror, the way that, boomers' earliest memories are colored by the Cold War. They endured the financial and housing crisis of the aughts, with shattered homes, jobs, and lives. It was terrifying to live through as adults, but our fears and anxieties became theirs. In 2018, a Pew Research study found that 1/4 of teenage children said they were actively very worried about dying in a school shooting. If we're right, a generational trauma in an unhealthy social context will drive the generation toward isolation. Dr. Jean Twenge is a professor of psychology studying generational differences, and her data support that hypothesis surprisingly clearly. Generation Z prefers to stay at home and connect through social media over leaving the house and connecting in person. High school seniors independently leave the house less often than millennial 8th graders did. They aren't as interested in getting driver's licenses because they have no desire to go out in public without their parents nearby. So what would be the point? They're far less interested in going out on dates, preferring instead to form their most intimate social connections digitally. And in this context, the Cigna study's finding makes sense. Dishearteningly, we're seeing increasing trends of anxiety disorders, depression, self-harm, and suicide among Generation Z. And to me, that's why our work within SeekHealing is so deeply important, and why I'm so proud to be part of this organization that's creating practical applications and metrics for social health, so that culturally we can disarm the isolating effects of trauma. The answer isn't a rebuke of technology. It's just a tool. And tools can't be good or bad. They can only reflect our intention. So if our intention is social health, how can technology be used? Now, if you listen to Jennifer's talk yesterday on social health, you might recognize this slide. Every human-to-human interaction, even if transactional by design, it carries with it the opportunity for a moment of genuine connection. And it releases those endogenous opioids in our brain, and it counteracts the trauma-based fear narratives, even just a little bit, making it safer and more possible to heal from that trauma. So instead of this model of viewing humans as the impediment to the successful and efficient completion of a transaction, what if we viewed the connection as the point and the focus of our intention of using technology to maximize our opportunity to connect? What if we're not replacing humans, but what if we're freeing humans to do the things that only humans can do? So in economic terms, human attention is our scarce resource. We're a little nonprofit with a small handful of staff, but we've got this amazing community of human beings, each with something to offer and each with something they need, and all of them hungry for more connection. So in a traditional program service model, our staff's work is around connecting those humans together so that we as a community can support each other and experience authentic connection in doing so. And so when technology makes sure the limited time and attention we have gets to the people who need it, technology enables a healthier social context. And so I created a platform that we call Athenae. So Athenae is the name of a genus of owls, like the spotted owlet here, kind of cute. But it's also the name of the goddess of wisdom from the Ionic ancient Greek. But Athenae is a technology platform that powers the entire SeekHealing community program. So at first it was just a program management database, a record of who came to connection practice so that we could gather some basic data. But as our thinking around social health evolved, so did it. And now we simply could not run SeekHealing without it. And so I'll give you some examples of what it is that we do with it. So seekers, one of the side effects of the drug prohibition is that folks that have had a relationship with drugs often are kind of damned to poverty. They have limited housing options, they have limited employment options, and so oftentimes they find themselves living in an area that isn't serviced by public transportation, unable to get a car for themselves. And so moving around in space is really one of the biggest struggles that they have. And asking somebody for help, like, isn't it an admission that I don't have a car, I don't have those means, and there is some shame around that, and it's hard. So we use Google Maps and we use Lyft, and we integrated those into Athenae so that Athenae can track what other seekers have a car and have named a willingness to volunteer to give rides. And so Athenae can use Google Maps to find what seekers live close by. And then Athenae can arrange for a Lyft for other seekers when there isn't a seeker who's close by. So we can use this technology in order to quickly and easily bridge these distance divides that keep people apart and from gathering together. Or a seeker reaches out and they have a specific connection need. Maybe they just need a hot meal and they haven't been able to eat. Maybe it's they're returning to use and they need naloxone to keep themselves safe. Maybe that's just somebody to come sit and listen to what's going on for them. Doesn't really matter what the need is, but we're always here and open, willing to listen and find ways to leverage our community to support everybody within it. And so we can use Twilio, which is a cloud-based service for text and voice communications. We can use Mailgun, which is a API-driven emailing service. And we can use our team's coordination over the communications platform Slack. And we can tie all of those into Athenae. And so what we've done is we've let Athenae track seekers' willingness to serve the community in very granular and specific ways. I think we have 20 now different avenues of service that people are able to volunteer and express a willingness to take part in. And so Athenae can also manage two-way text and email with seekers who might want to volunteer for one of these, what we call connection missions. So when there's a seeker with a need, we can quickly identify other seekers in the community who have expressed a willingness to support those kinds of needs, reach out to them over text or email, collect a response, and make sure we connect need and seeker together. Another example. So we talked about earlier that one of the side effects of trauma and stigma and shame is that when you need connection most, that's when you're probably shyest to ask for it. And so when people are hurting, when people go through a really dark period, they often don't reach out. They often just disappear. And silence is much harder to notice, especially when you have a community the size of ours. So Athene can highlight seekers who have patterns that have changed, since we track the attendance of every seeker at every connection practice, since we can establish regularity and patterns, what kinds of meetings they tend to go to, we can look and identify which seekers have suddenly dropped off the map. And if somebody's dropped off the map, then we can direct program staff to reach out to them, to stop by, to connect with people who need it most, but who really don't have it within them to ask. I think I have a duplicate. So the other benefit of all of this and having everything centralized in our community operations around Athene is we can begin to gather all the data we need to better support this healthy social context in our community that makes it resilient to trauma and addiction. We can assess seekers' sense of connectedness in their lives, their optimism about not just their likelihood to survive, but their likelihood to thrive, the wealth of real connections they enjoy in their lives. We can correlate that data with what programs, services, and activities they've engaged with, so we can determine what's most conducive to catalyzing social health. And we can use this data to really rally support around SeekHealing and around this nascent field of social health to get more organizations involved, more businesses and governments thinking about social health as part of this whole context, and more funding to support these sorts of operations and goals. So what did we learn from all of this is that technology as a tool, you can't optimize for profit, and you can't just optimize for efficiency. What you really need to do is optimize for joy. In this conundrum of capitalism, technology, and social health, we really can see that the intention in using these social tools matters greatly. What we choose to optimize our efforts toward has an immense impact on the social health and context that we humans live our lives in. And so with every new feature of Athene, at every stage of design, we optimize for joy, what fosters and supports the growth of happier and healthier humans. So capitalism and technology without intentional focus, capitalism and technology without intention, they focus on the ends they wish to create without regard for the means of reaching them. So for technology to support social health, every part has to be mindful of the human impact. And I will grant you that's easy for us to say as a nonprofit, where this probably is harder to practice in the for-profit realm. But I think this idea of corporate social responsibility that's been popularized, it's not just about giving money away or organizing a weekend volunteering to build a Habitat for Humanity house. Corporate social responsibility is being mindful of the impacts of every facet of business operations on humans, on customers, on employees, on the public at large. I'll give a couple of examples of how this has and how it could play out. So the airline industry is not exactly known for joy. When I think about flying, like, it doesn't exactly make me happy, but maybe this is an odd example to begin with, but it's one that has really stuck with me throughout the years. So phone trees, they're the epitome of automation replacing humans. You call in, you wait patiently as the dictated recording tells you what numbers to hit to navigate the organization. Or, maybe it's a newer thing where you wrestle with a program trying to interpret what you were saying into a command. And I don't know about y'all, but for me, I almost always end up mashing 0 repeatedly or just saying agent with even louder and more frustrated iterations, hoping to find, just a human being at the end of the line. But such systems have optimized for cost and efficiency to the detriment of joy and connection. So if and when I finally ever do reach an operator, I'm so exasperated from the journey, I'm not really in a place to connect, positively with that person. But as soon as voice over IP technology became a reality, bucking the trend of their peers, JetBlue decided not to go with a phone tree for their customer support system. They didn't outsource their call center to the cheapest location possible. Instead, they hired operators in Utah to take customer support calls from their homes. Almost all of them were stay-at-home mothers in the LDS church, and they took JetBlue customer service calls throughout the day. And so calling their phone line immediately connected you with a human being happy to be of service. And that is optimizing not for cost efficiency, not for process efficiency, but optimizing for the joy of the experience. And it really shows. Yeah, so this is Ellie and Livy. They're not my daughters, they're my nieces. I will say that I'm rather notorious at SeekHealing for telling dad jokes, even though I don't have any kids of my own, which makes me a faux pas. Anyway, I was visiting them some time ago, and my brother has an Amazon Echo in his home. The girls know how to interact with it, and they accidentally stumbled upon another example of humanizing this automation. So when Ellie, the older one, asked Alexa to play some music for her, she ended her request with "please." But the Echo interpreted the word as part of the song name she wanted to hear, and it couldn't complete her request. So she repeated it, except without the "please." Then the music started playing, and she said "thank you," but then was surprised that the Echo had no reply. So that got me thinking that, like, we're developing artificial intelligence systems that do not respond differently to kindness or cruelty. You can curse at your Echo, and the next request you give will be carried out just the same as before. So in this case, what are we optimizing for? And as artificial intelligence and robotic systems develop to where some future generation of Alexa, you can imagine, is in a humanoid body, what will it do for social health if we can verbally abuse them with no consequences? I think there's a tremendous opportunity for optimizing such technology for joy, for kindness and compassion, for patience and humility. So I think that even in the for-profit sphere, there's opportunities all around us to bring this awareness of human impact to what it is that we do in business and technology. So as we come to the end of the talk, I will leave you with this. If you're a technologist or an entrepreneur like me, take the opportunity to reassess your intentions around the tools of capitalism and technology. Ask yourself, what am I optimizing for? And what can I do to build into my processes and design a thinking of an intention to uplift and support better social context for all of us to live in? And if you're just a user of technology, even if you're just a user of things like social media, take the opportunity to assess your intention in using it. What is it you're intending when you make this post? What is it you're really intending when you reply to this or retweet it? What is it you're wanting out of the connections that you're delegating to these platforms? I mean, there are no right or wrong answers here. It's technology. It's just a tool. It's us and our intentions that decide the impact it will have on ourselves and on our community. So thank you very much for the time. I know I didn't use my full hour, but that's okay. The development of Athenae is something that's, I have done on a volunteer basis. It's something which, like I said, is vital and critical to the operations of SeekHealing. And it's something which helps us reach out to our community and support everybody in it with individuality, with care, and with intention. And so if you have been touched by this, if this is something that you can see the true benefit in, I really do hope that you'll follow the link that Joey posted and give. I felt it was said best by one of our seekers last year, who said there are a lot of really fantastic organizations you can give your money to. This one is actually saving lives every single day. So thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'll pull up the chat and see if there are any questions. Oh, thank y'all.
And it looks like Jennifer has a question
Sure.
to speak more to the future of what your development of Athene will look like, Josh.
Yeah. So what will the future of Athene look like? It's we've got some interesting ideas, but honestly, it's pretty hard to say because like we're having to take these really deliberate and intentional steps. We can't really model what it is that we're building there on anything that really exists now. Like we could say, oh, let's build a social network around Athene, but what are we going to do about that social network to make sure the connections in it are really truly authentic? And so, like some of the more immediate steps are really going to be around a lot of workflow things. So, in terms of helping individual seekers navigate the resources we have in the community, making sure that we're not dropping the ball on anybody moving through, exploring those opportunities or getting connected to them, that we're following up, that we're making sure that the quality of our programming stays extremely high. We're looking at other ways that we can integrate with different systems. So our main phone line right now goes into pretty simple virtual PBX system, but we're looking at wiring that into Twilio so that our phone line goes through the same system that our texting features go through, which means that individual seekers can call in and we can use information from their actual seeker history in order to direct them to a particular person, to note that they called in, to note when they called in. We're looking at other ways that we can leverage some of the communication also. So we're looking into a project with Buncombe County to leverage the same technology in Athene for alerting the community when the county has been aware of a spike in overdoses, meaning that there's a batch of heroin in the community that's been tainted with fentanyl. And so sending those out as a public alert system is something that we're looking to extend Athene in and lend to the county for that purpose. So there's a lot of opportunities we have for taking this centralized community resource and attaching it to all these other communication tools to make sure that we're connecting people to other people in our community that they need to be connected to in the way that best serves them.